Howdy, and welcome to another episode of Untold Tales from This Side of Nowhere, the podcast where we tell stories about that little town just about as close as you can get to the middle of nowhere. That is Poverty Flats, Wyoming. Before we get rolling, here's a message from our sponsors. This week, our sponsor is Basin Pharmacy in Basin, Wyoming. Basin Pharmacy is your hometown pharmacy, as well as your source for over-the-counter medicine, vitamins, and supplements. They also carry office supplies, Russell Stover chocolates, and greeting cards. The friendly folks at Basin Pharmacy are happy to help with any of your medicinal needs, whether you have a prescription to fill or a question about your meds. You can stop in Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Saturdays from 9 a.m. to noon. Out here in Poverty Flats, if your machine breaks down halfway to nowhere, you're in for a long walk home. That's why I've been using Lookover Power Sports, a handy little app that helps you track maintenance and set reminders, even with a photo right from the trail. It works for dirt bikes, side-by-sides, snowmobiles, and just about anything with a motor. You can try it free for a month, and it's 50% off until Labor Day. Start by visiting lookover.app. Because breakdowns make bad stories, unless they're someone else's. We are also sponsored by the Wyoming Welcome Program. The Wyoming Welcome Program offers two services to local businesses: Table Talk and the Wyoming Welcome Baskets. Wyoming Welcome Baskets are filled with promotional items for local businesses and distributed to new move-ins to the Bighorn Basin. Table Talk brochures include jokes, facts about the state of Wyoming, the month's holidays, and advertisements from our local businesses. These brochures are placed on restaurant tables in Cody and Powell for diners to peruse. So if you'd like to get your business name out there, please contact the folks at the Wyoming Welcome Program by shooting an email to Haley J, that's HALEYJ, at wyomingwelcome.com. And now, the podcast. Well, it is Labor Day weekend. Growing up, Labor Day weekend always meant just that, labor. My dad and mom seemed to be really good at finding projects for us to do Labor Day weekend, and now we have a big Jones family reunion up on the mountain at the family's cabin on the Bighorns on Labor Day weekend. And by the time this episode airs, I'll probably be headed up the mountain. So I'm looking forward to that. We are still doing a project, though. We'll be restaining the cabin. It hasn't been stained in quite a while, so we'll stain it red, and it's got that green steel roof. It will look really good when it's done. But yeah, that's what the Joneses like to do when we get together. We find a project to get done. So I hope you are having a fantastic Labor Day weekend. And while you are out camping, or some of you will be scouting elk, I'm sure, whatever your Labor Day activities entail, I hope that outdoor karma doesn't find you. And that is our topic for today's story. As a matter of fact, outdoor karma. Allow me to explain. One of the fundamental principles of the universe is the law of causality, or in other words, cause and effect. Every action produces a result in some way or another. If you touch a hot stove, you will get burned. If you climb a mountain, you will see the view from the top. I know it sounds pretty basic, and the fact is, it is one of the most basic principles of life, but for many years, I was completely unaware of the far-reaching effects of the law of causality, especially when it comes to the outdoors. You might refer to this principle as outdoor karma. Take, for instance, my childhood practice of terrorizing ants. My twin brother Fred and I were merciless when it came to ants. As children, we used to do everything we could to rile up an anthill and cause general distress and chaos for the little guys, and it went way beyond the typical use of a magnifying glass to burn an ant or two. We kicked ant hills just to watch them swarm in confusion. Many of the large harvester ant nests around my parents' house in Poverty Flats, Wyoming, still contain the remnants of the barrages of rocks we threw at ant hills. I can remember running up to an ant hill, squirting it with a water gun, and then running away. We attacked ant hills with firecrackers, BB guns, and even rubbing alcohol and fire. You name it, and we probably did it. I do feel some remorse for my behavior when it comes to the most industrious of insects. Unless ants are in my home or invading my property, I make a point of leaving them alone now. After years of working to build a life and a home for my family, I have a little more appreciation for the ants' hard work. I may also be trying to avoid a bit of the ant karma that got Fred. You see, when we were about 4 years old and still living in Idaho, we were enjoying our usual anti-ant activities when Fred sat down in an anthill. I'm not exactly sure why he would do that, but I think it may have something to do with the law of causality. I mean, he knew what an anthill was, and he had been told many times that they sting, but for some reason on that summer day, he sat in the hill. Maybe he thought it would squish an ant or two, but I suspect it was the inexorable force of ant karma acting on him. Boy, did he pay for everything he had done to ants. By the time Mom heard him screaming, he probably had 100 ants or so up his pants. Mom rushed him to the shower and rinsed off every one of the little buggers, but Fred was covered in angry red stings, and he learned his lesson. He never sat in another anthill, but I'm willing to bet the following decade of abuse he unleashed on ants, and not the ant that's spelled with a U, had something to do with his traumatic experience. So, karma goes both ways. You mess with ants, and they mess with you. When they mess with you, you mess with them. For my part, I have left my ant-squishing ways behind, at least for the most part. The funny thing is, even though I saw what happened to Fred, I wasn't afraid of ant karma until reaching adulthood. I just hope I've paid my dues with the sugar ants that keep invading my home. I'd prefer not to pay with 100 ant bites. Outdoor karma definitely applies to more situations than just ants, and it can serve both good and bad in the life of anyone who enjoys the outdoors. Let's take a look at interactions with people in the outdoors and how the law of causality can impact your experience. How about hiking? This summer, my wife Lily and I went hiking in 2 different locations near Bozeman, Montana. On the first day, we hiked a trail near a little creek. From the start of the hike, we encountered other people, even though it was a weekday. Right off the bat, a mountain biker rode past us, and we were forced to jump to the side of the trail to avoid getting run over. I nodded to the cyclist, pressing my back against a tree as the mountain biker pedaled by, gears clicking and his tires spitting up rocks. About 20 minutes later, we passed an elderly couple walking a dog, and then a couple ladies chatting as they marched along with a hiking pole in each hand. To a Wyoming boy who is used to going hours, and sometimes days, without encountering another person on the trail, it seemed like the mountain was overrun with people. As we neared the end of the hike, I grumbled as one more lady and her dog passed us, going in the opposite direction. "Doesn't anyone work anymore? I can't believe how many people we've seen." Lily raised an eyebrow. "We've seen like 10 people this afternoon," she said. "That's not exactly a crowd." "Well," I grumbled, It's more than I'm used to. I like to go hiking to get away from people, not to chat with half of Montana about the weather. Lily just shook her head. Perhaps she was anticipating what hiking karma had in store for me. The next day, we hit the trail even earlier, excited to take on a 9-mile loop we had discovered on the All Trails app. From the looks of it, this would be my kind of hike. The route promised to give us some amazing views of the Gallatin Valley and the surrounding area, and we would gain more than 3,000 feet of elevation. Surely a hike that punishing would have very little in the way of foot traffic. But hiking karma was on to me. Every able-bodied human being and their dog was out on that trail. It all started when we pulled up to the parking lot and couldn't find a place to park the car. "What is this?" I groaned as I weaved past a vehicle headed for the exit. "Looks like a popular spot," Lily observed. Every parking spot was full, so I imitated another vehicle and parked with half the vehicle hanging off the road into the lot. When I reached for the door handle, I had to wait a full 30 seconds for a vehicle to pass inches from my side of the car before opening the door. "It looks like the weather is going to be nice," Lily said, lacing up her pink and gray tennis shoes. "Yes," I sighed. "I wouldn't argue with a little rain, maybe a flash flood." Lily rolled her eyes and adjusted her baseball cap. "Let's hit this trail." We tried. First, we had to wait for an entire family of tourists to pass, including the parents, a teenage girl who was texting as she walked, and her brother, who was wearing a tank top and baggy jeans. To top it off, the mother was dragging a tiny bit of fluff on a leash I only identified as a dog after taking a second look. When we were finally able to get on the trail, I glanced at the signpost and my heart dropped. "Montana State University M Trail?" I blustered. "This trail leads to the university's M?" "I guess that explains the crowd," Lily sighed. "It looks like the M hike is really short. Once we get past it, I bet there will be fewer people." Just then, a man dressed in a spotless t-shirt, khaki shorts, and Ray-Bans passed us. Did I mention he was carrying a baby on his chest while talking on the phone? "No, I don't think it's a good time to buy," he was saying. "I've been looking at the projections and we need to keep researching." "I take back everything I said yesterday about crowded trails," I grunted. "Karma has a sense of humor, huh?" Lily replied with a wide grin. "You would think after everything I've experienced with outdoor karma, I would be more careful, but I just can't seem to learn my lesson. There are many situations in which it's best just to keep your mouth shut, just in case karma is listening. For instance, one year Dad, Fred, and I were elk hunting up at our family's cabin in the Bighorns, and my dad's cousin was also there. We arrived on a Friday evening to find smoke rising from the cabin chimney and a pickup parked out front. "Looks like Steve is back for the evening. I don't see an elk in the back of his truck, so he must not have gotten one yet," Dad observed. As we pulled to a stop, the door to the cabin swung open, and there was Steve. He was a large man, tall, about 6 foot, with a large black beard and dark brown eyes. "How's it going?" Dad asked as we emerged from the truck. "All right," Steve said, stepping down from the cabin. "Can I help you bring anything in?" "There's a cooler here in the back," Dad said. "We can probably set it by the porch." Steve helped us haul our stuff in, and we got settled. While we fixed some supper, Steve sat in a recliner and filled us in on his hunt. "Been here since Tuesday," Steve said. "I've seen a lot of elk, and I even had a shot on one this afternoon." Kind of embarrassing, actually. Oh, yeah? Dad asked, turning from the stove. Yeah, Steve sighed. I missed a 50-yard shot. Oh. Dad's eyebrows were brushing his hairline, and Fred and I stopped what we were doing to listen. Yeah, I was coming back from the round hill and I saw an elk near the tree line about 50 yards away. I jumped out and rested my gun on the bed of the truck. I had a dead rest and everything, but when I took the shot, I guess I must have missed. Elk took off. I went over and looked all around the spot, but I never did find the bullet. I have no idea how I missed that shot. There was a moment of silence. And then Dad said, Did you hit the truck? Steve chuckled and shook his head. Nope, I did check though. I have no clue what happened. I didn't say anything out loud, but while Dad did his best to console his cousin, I was thinking all sorts of condescending thoughts. How do you miss a 50-yard shot? I wondered. You'd have to be trying to miss, the voice in my head continued. Well, better luck tomorrow, Dad said with a shrug. I glanced over at Fred and raised my eyebrows. He returned the look. The next morning, we didn't see anything and returned to the cabin for an hour or two before hitting the evening hunt, hoping we would be more successful. Dad positioned Fred and I near the edge of a clearing where we could watch for elk to come out of the timber. As the light faded, the temperature steadily fell. I sat shivering near a large rock, trying to focus on looking for elk rather than the slow demise of my toes. I was certain I would lose at least half of them to frostbite at the rate I was going. I continued scanning the tree line in front of me, the dark pines standing out in stark contrast to the white of the snow. Left to right, right to left, slowly taking in the trees by the foot. After what seemed like an eternity of shivering and wiggling my aching toes, I saw it. A dark shape emerging from the trees. My breath caught in my throat and my body tensed. Suddenly my heart was galloping around my chest, my frozen feet now fully forgotten. What is that? Is that a... It was. There, not 150 yards away, was an elk emerging from the trees. And not just one elk. From behind the first cow I had spotted came a whole herd of elk. First came another cow, and then a calf, their dark tan hide visible in the dimming light. Then, with a suddenness that took my breath away, an enormous bull stepped out from behind a tree. His antlers brushed the lower branches of the tree above him, and I counted enough points to make any hunter giddy. Trying desperately to stop my hands from shaking, I slowly shifted my rifle from where it had been sitting across my lap and eased toward the large rock to my right. It would make the perfect rest. The wind was blowing toward me, and the elk hadn't spotted me yet. I couldn't have asked for a more perfect setup. I could have laughed aloud. I was so excited. My body aching with anticipation, I slumped down against the rock and braced my upper body, my rifle pointing toward the herd in front of me. I carefully eased the glove off my right hand, and instantly the biting cold assaulted my fingers. I didn't notice. I was watching the herd of elk in front of me like a 5-year-old at the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Now my hands were really shaking. Whether from the cold or from the excitement, I wasn't sure, but I was very thankful for the dead rest, because without it, I'm sure I couldn't have made the shot. I slid my glove under the stock of the gun to provide extra padding and pressed my right eye to the scope. All I saw were trees. Come on, I hissed, panning to the right. There, a flash of fur. I pulled back to the left, filling my scope with a cow elk. Where are you? I grunted, intent on finding my prize. The crosshairs slid over a calf, another cow, and then, finally, the bull elk. Bingo! Now the elk were easing back into the trees, having exposed themselves in the clearing just long enough. The head cow was already out of sight, but I had just enough time to get a clear shot on the bull. My heart was positively pounding out of my chest, and it was all I could do to steady my rifle. But I did. I began exhaling slowly, the air whooshing past my lips. The crosshairs were dancing around all over the enormous bull's chest. This had to be the biggest elk I had ever seen. Man, were the guys going to be amazed. I could just imagine rolling up to the cabin that night with this monster in the back, the look on Cousin Steve's face when he saw this trophy bull. Urging every fiber of my being to focus on this one moment, this one shot, I finished exhaling and held my rifle completely still. The bull had paused and was standing motionless. The crosshairs were lined up. This was a perfect shot, just over 100 yards, and right where my rifle had been sighted into. With a little jolt of electricity, I pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. "What?" I gasped. I tried again. Still nothing. "What in tarnation?" I growled in disbelief. The bull started walking, following the other elk back into the trees. Frantically, I pulled back the bolt on the rifle to be sure there was a bullet in the chamber. Check. I looked to see if something was blocking the trigger. Why wasn't it firing? My mind raced frantically. The bull was getting away. The window of opportunity was sliding inexorably shut. What was wrong with my gun? Just as the bull slid back into the trees, it hit me like a load of bricks. I covered my face with my hands and slumped against the rock. The bull was gone. I had missed my chance. At that moment, I heard footsteps crunching frantically through the snow. I glanced up to see Fred running toward me, his rifle in one hand. "Al, why didn't you take the shot? They were right in front of you." I shook my head, my face burning with embarrassment. Taking a deep breath, I pulled my glove back on. "It's that dang outdoor karma," I said sadly. "What?" Fred asked, his face clouded with confusion. "Karma got me," I said with finality. "What's that supposed to mean?" Fred asked. "I forgot to take the safety off." "Oh," Fred said. For a moment, I looked down at my boots. Then Fred started to chuckle. I looked up at his face. He had an enormous grin plastered across his mug, and now he was really starting to laugh. "Ha ha ha ha! You forgot to take the safety off? That was probably the biggest bull I've ever seen," he chortled. "Yeah, I know," I growled, straightening up and slinging my rifle over my shoulder. "Just wait till Dad and Steve hear about this," Fred guffawed. I shook my head sadly and began trudging back the way we had come. The sun was out of sight and darkness was falling. Outdoor karma had struck again. Well, there you go. Outdoor karma. It's out there, and it's always watching. I don't know about you, but I've definitely had my fair share of outdoor karma, whether it's losing a fish right after I ridiculed someone for missing a catch, or I don't know, saying something about the weather and then it starts to rain on our hike. It just seems to get you every time. And maybe you have had an experience with outdoor karma. If you have, please let me know about it. You can shoot me an email at untoldtalesthepodcast@gmail.com, or you can comment on this post on Facebook when the episode drops. But whatever it is, I'd love to hear from you. And if you do send us a message, we're sure to give you a shout out on the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you like Untold Tales from This Side of Nowhere, please be sure to rate us on your podcasting platform, whether it's Apple Podcasts or YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star rating. It will make the podcast easier for other people to find. And please tell all your friends about Untold Tales from This Side of Nowhere. It's been a real pleasure sharing this story with you. And as always, this has been another Untold Tale from This Side of Nowhere, where we work twice as hard for half as much, and still find time for the important things, like fishing. See you next time, folks.